On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, join me, Belinda Brady, as I discuss the school teacher who went to school to finish up some work before leaving for her honeymoon, never to return. Coming up right after this. Hi everyone, welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. Welcome back, guys, and welcome. I have missed you. I've missed this podcast, so I'm so happy to be back. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate you all, and I've got my first ever fan mail today, so I'm absolutely over the moon. And if you do feel the need to send any fan mail, please send some away. I don't bite, I promise. You can find it all up on the website, which is on Buzzsprout. Now, today's episode, which I've titled I Went a Little Nuts, The Murder of Stephanie Scott, is it does discuss sexual assault and murder, so listener discretion is advised. And what am I drinking for this episode? I am drinking my usual black coffee with cookie dough syrup. Now, of course, I'll give a quick shout out to some listeners we've got on board. And at the moment, I can see we've got people joining me from Brussels, Florida, North Carolina, Indiana, New South Wales, and Auckland. Hi, guys. Thank you for your company. You are all absolute rock stars. Thank you. And before I start this episode, I need to list my sources. They are sbs.com.au, abc.net.au, smh.com.au, theguardian.com/Australia-news, heraldsun.com.au, and oceanroadmagazine.com.au and news.com.au. Now, again, I will say real quick, this episode does discuss sexual assault and murder. So if this is distressing to you, please, listener discretion is advised. For those lending me your ears, sit back, relax, get your drink of choice, be it coffee or tea or hot chocolate, wherever you are in the world, whatever your preference, grab it, lend me your ears. If you're driving to work, if you're at the gym, if you're settling in for an afternoon nap, or if you're going to bed, get yourself comfy, get yourself hydrated, and let's dive right in. Now, planning a wedding is an exciting time. Yes, it's stressful, but it's also really exciting. From picking the dress, the venue, and the flowers, it is a really special time for not only the bride and the groom, but for their family and friends. And the excitement and planning is something they all share a part of. But for popular school teacher and bride-to-be Stephanie Scott, she would not make her wedding day, and her murder would bring a small country town to its knees. Leighton is a picturesque country town located in the Riverina region of New South Wales, Australia. Designed by Walter Burley Griffin, it was built for early 20th century irrigation schemes and is home to citrus, rice, cotton, grape and wheat farming, and is known as Australia's rice capital. As of 2021, the population of Leighton was around 7,400, and up until 2015, Stephanie Scott was one of those residents. Stephanie Claire Scott was born on the 14th of October 1988 in Sydney, New South Wales, to parents Robert and Marilyn Scott. She had two sisters and two brothers, and her dad was the deputy principal of Canomindra High School, and I do hope I have said that correctly, where Aaron Leeson Woolley was a student. Now, Aaron was close to the Scott family, and before too long, he and Stephanie were in a relationship, and by 2014, the couple announced their engagement and had set a wedding date of April 2015. Now, by 2015, Stephanie was living in Leighton and was a much-loved drama teacher at Leighton High School. She was adored by her students, her colleagues, and pretty much anyone who was fortunate enough to cross paths with her. Now, as I said, Stephanie and Aaron had set their wedding date for the 11th of April 2015. And on the 5th of April 2015, which was Easter Sunday, Stephanie kissed Aaron goodbye as he was headed to a farewell party for a friend. And Stephanie had decided to stay behind to work on some last-minute wedding plans. And she also wanted to head to the school where she worked to make sure her students and the relief teacher that was taking over her role while she was on her honeymoon were prepared and looked after. It would be the last time Aaron would see his fiancée alive. At around 11 a.m, Stephanie arrived at the school and made her way to the English teacher's staff room after a friend who had the keys let her in. Now, Stephanie's red Mazda sedan was parked near the school gate, and Stephanie was in the staff room for around 2 hours, before deciding to call it a day. And after that, she simply vanished. No one heard from her. There was no texting, no phone calls, nothing. She simply vanished. Now, Stephanie's fiancé, Aaron, started to worry when he texted her later on that day, but she didn't reply. He was at the farewell party for his friend, and when he returned home at around 7:30 that night, Steph was nowhere to be seen and she hadn't replied to any of his text messages. He drove to the school to see if she was still there, but there was no sign of her. There was no sign of her car. He did a lap to her friend's place to see if she was maybe, seeing a friend. Nothing. He initially thought she might have had a case of pre-wedding jitters, pre-wedding nerves, and decided to have a night to herself. But when he still hadn't heard from her later on that night, and her friends and family confirmed that they too hadn't seen or heard from her, he reported her missing to Leighton Police at 4:30 on the 6th of April 2015. So that was Easter Monday. Now, police conducted a Find My iPhone on Stephanie's cell phone, in other parts of the world, but it was either turned off or not operating, and her bank accounts and social media pages had been inactive. A missing persons case was quickly established, and Stephanie's friends and family were quick to raise the alarm via social media, and I actually remember seeing these posts at the time. And they also searched the Leighton area and hired a helicopter to conduct a search via the air. Police publicly appealed for any info on Stephanie's whereabouts on the 7th of April, and media outlets far and wide ran reports about her disappearance. Now, detectives attended the last place Stephanie was known to be at, which was the school where she worked, and a check of the alarm showed that Stephanie had disarmed the admin block alarm at around 1:31 p.m. and had rearmed it at 1:38 p.m. Forensics and the dog squad were brought in to help with a further search, but police had a distraction to deal with, and one that would prove crucial. A large group of Steph's friends and family were hell-bent on breaking into the school to see if Stephanie was being held captive. So remember, guys, this was in school holiday, so there was no classes. No one was at the school. But as police were advising them not to do this, a man who lived next to the school advised them that he had seen the school cleaner at the school over the Easter weekend, around the same time that Stephanie was. And unbelievably, the cleaner happened to drive past the school as the police were there. And when they stopped him to ask what he was doing there, he told them, "I've just dropped my mother off to work and I was on my way home." Now, the man in question, the school's cleaner, was a man named Vincent Stanford. And when police later on started digging into him, they were quite shocked at what they found. He had quite a violent past, and he was very quickly a person of interest, even though that wasn't publicised at the time. But I can tell you that Vincent Stanford was born on the 21st of December 1990 in Tasmania, Australia. He lived there with his parents, Anika and Steve, until they moved with his twin brother Marcus and his older brother Luke to the Netherlands when he was 3 years old. Now, dad Steve soon left the family unit, and Mum Anika was raising her boys alone in the Netherlands, and by all reports, their childhoods were normal. But unbeknownst to Vincent's mother, a violent boy was waiting to explode, and explode he did because in 2003 he grabbed a teacher by the throat after losing his temper, and he was very quickly expelled for that incident. Now, it was around this time that he started having thoughts of killing someone. And the Stanfords returned to Australia and settled in Leeton, with Marcus moving to South Australia and Vincent and Luke living with their mother in Leeton. Now, Vincent scored a cleaning job at the school in March of 2015. Police paid him a visit and asked him a few questions. And yes, according to Vincent, he was at the school working that weekend, and his car had been spotted to back this up, but he denied knowing Steph or even having seen her that weekend. And as the police were leaving his house, he yelled out, "Hey, good luck with the search." On the 8th of April, Constable Whelan had been looking for Vincent at his home to ask him some more questions, but couldn't find him. But later that day, Vincent presented to Leeton Police Station and made a statement where he again repeated he had been working at the school that weekend, but he hadn't seen Steph. And on the way home from work, he had stopped in at a local supermarket to grab a few things. However, when police spoke to the manager of the nominated supermarket, he told them the supermarket was closed that day. Easter Sunday can be a public holiday here in Australia, so you can be open or you can stay shut. It is totally up to you if you're a business owner. Like I said, Vincent was a person of interest, but police needed to get hard proof that he had something to do with whatever had happened to Stephanie. Police called around Vincent's home that he shared with his mother and his brother at around 6 o'clock on April 8th, still the same day after Vincent had gone in to give that statement, and found that he wasn't home. But his mother consented to the police doing a walkthrough of the property, and what they found was quite shocking. They found a set of keys on a white and red lanyard that matched a set Steph had in his backyard. They found fresh car tyre marks that were smaller than Vincent's ute in the yard, and they also found a used condom and yellow tape in Vincent's and yellow tape. And in Vincent's room, they found several unopened condoms on the floor and a condom wrapper. Police declared the premises a crime scene, and Vincent's mother and brother were removed and taken to the police station. When Vincent arrived home a short time later, he told the waiting police he'd been out taking pictures, and police noticed a digital camera on his front seat. Police seized the car and took Vincent to the station where they had a look at the pictures that Vincent had been taking. And the very first pic on his digital camera was a burnt human body, which looked to be female in bushland. Still, Vincent denied having any contact with Stephanie, and when questioned about some scratch marks on his forehead, under his eyes and on his nose and on his forearm, he said he'd simply run into a tree branch earlier in the week. He also tried to fob off the photo of the burnt body as one he had downloaded from a horror movie that he thought was funny. He was absolutely adamant they were not pictures of Stephanie. But police weren't buying any of it. They had all they needed, and he was arrested and charged with the murder of Stephanie. Vincent consented to DNA being collected, and he was refused bail. Now, yes, he was charged with murder, but there was not a body yet. But in the meantime, a forensic examination of Vincent's ute returned a positive result for human blood found on MDF boards in the car. And a GPS showed the car had driven to Kokopara National Park, which is around 50 kilometres north of Leeton. Police also found a mobile phone and an open but unused condom in its wrapper under the passenger seat, and surface deposits on the ute indicated the car had driven on a gravel dirt road, just like the one that goes in and out near Kokopara National Park, where his car's GPS system had shown he had been. On the 9th of April, Stephanie's car was found on a farm around 11 kilometres away from Vincent's home. Forensics found a substantial amount of blood in the boot and on the rear bumper, and the blood was a match for Stephanie's, and Vincent's DNA was also found in her car. Stephanie's DNA was also found on a car boot liner, which was found at Vincent's house, and a fuel can, and on the outside of a used condom, indicating it had been used on her, and the yellow tape that had been found. Inside Vincent's house, they'd found Stephanie's keys, a red bra, which was ID'd as hers, and a knife that was later proven to be the murder weapon. A bottle of lubricant and more condoms found in a cupboard also had Stephanie's DNA on them. Now, Vincent's computer was seized, and what police found was nothing short of shocking. It contained surveillance images of women and children, bestiality, and videos on murder, rape, and bomb making. The search also showed that on the 4th of April, Vincent had spent a good chunk of time searching for things like a widowmaker, sharpest puncture knives, and serial killer knives. He had also purchased a dagger-style knife and flexi cuffs online. On the 10th of April, a witness came forward to say he had seen a vehicle fitting the description of Vincent's pull up near the main canal at around 3:50 p.m. on Easter Sunday, and this witness said he saw a male throw what looked like a laptop into the water and drive off. Police divers searched the canal and found a red laptop that was confirmed as Stephanie's work laptop. Now, while all this was going on, there was still no sign of Steph and there was still no body to be found. But the search was still going at full speed, and at around 5 p.m. on the 10th of April, the worst news was confirmed when police found the badly burnt remains of a human body in Kokopara Park, and the body was identified as Stephanie. Stephanie's devastated friends and family were advised of the awful find. On the 11th of April, Vincent requested an interview with police, and police drove to where he was being held, which was the Junee Correctional Centre, to talk to him. When they were there, they didn't tell him they had found Stephanie's body, and instead they let him implicate himself, and implicate himself he did. He told police what he had done with Stephanie. He told them where he had dumped her body, and he told them exactly what had happened. He said he'd first seen Stephanie that fateful Easter Sunday when she was in the staff room at the school. He said he'd never met her before, he had no idea who she was, and he had no idea she was even going to be there. But he said when he saw her, a feeling came over him, and just that I had to kill her. I wasn't angry or anything, basically emotionless, just that I had to kill her. When she approached him and said, "I'm going home now, have a happy Easter," he responded by picking her up from behind, putting his hand over her mouth and dragging her into a storeroom. Stephanie struggled and fought Vincent, but she was no match for him, who was easily twice her size, though she did manage to scratch him on the face, on the forearm, which is what the police questioned earlier, before being dragged into a nearby room. And the room that she was dragged into was once used as a dark room for photography. There, Vincent pushed her on the floor, and he put his left arm around her throat and began punching her in the face with his right fist. Stephanie was fighting for her life, but Vincent kept punching. He kept delivering blow after blow, and he stated he punched her 30 to 40 times, all up in around 50 seconds, and she very, very quickly succumbed to her injuries and fell unconscious. Vincent then got a condom and raped her. He then stabbed her in the neck, getting her in the main artery, and when police asked why he did that, he said to make sure she was dead. He also told police he went a little nuts during the attack. After he made sure she was dead, he placed his knife near her and went home for lunch. After having lunch, he returned to the school and back to where Stephanie's body was laying. He cleaned his knife, collected the car keys she had dropped in the struggle, and went to her car, which was parked on Myrtle Street, and drove it to the other side of the school, where he carried her body to the car and put her in the boot, also known as trunk of the car, and on top of a plastic sheet that he had placed in there. He put masking tape over the stab wounds in her neck to try and stop the still flowing blood. He then went back to the crime scene and cleaned Stephanie's blood off the concrete floor with a high-pressure cleaner. He then drove Stephanie's car back to his house and parked it behind a large shed in his backyard, leaving Stephanie's body in there. He then walked back to the school to collect his ute, and while he was there, removed blood-soaked MDF boards from the dark room where the killing took place and put them in his ute. Now, unbeknownst to Vincent, on the drive home, he was photographed at the wheel of his car by a highway patrol car at around about 3:35 p.m, which put him in the vicinity of the crime scene. Once home, he drove Stephanie's car to a service station, also known as a gas station, and filled up a jerry can with petrol, where he was captured again, this time on the service station's CCTV. In the early hours of 6th of April, Vincent drove Stephanie's car with her body still in the boot to the Kokopara National Park, which is around 50 kilometres away from Leeton. There he placed her body on the ground, took her clothes off and placed her clothes, a sun visor from her car and the sheet of plastic she'd been lying on under a tree, and doused them all with around 20 litres of petrol and set fire to them all. He then drove Stephanie's car back to his place, removed the jerry can and the boot liner, and after changing his clothing, drove it to Pike Road, Wamoon, and I hope I'm saying that suburb right, and left it near the canal. He then met his mother at 7:30 a.m. where they did a grocery shop, and afterwards he drove around Leeton, throwing Stephanie's possessions into garbage bins and near a sports oval. These items were never recovered. He told police to return to the scene a short time after to see if she was still there and maybe the wildlife would have taken her. On the 13th of April, a post-mortem found the direct cause of Stephanie's death was blunt force trauma. Bruises were found on the right side of her face, and she had suffered a nasal fracture and a blowout fracture of the right eye, which is an injury often associated with those who have had a car accident, and there were 2 stab wounds on her neck and her right internal jugular vein was disrupted. On the 3rd of June 2015, Vincent had 1 count of aggravated sexual assault added to the murder charge, and a search of his internet history provided a horrific picture of the kind of man Vincent was. I did touch on some searches that the police found earlier on, but he had also searched for bride rape and bride kidnapping only months before he murdered Stephanie. And police also discovered he had been stalking a supermarket worker, another teacher, and a 12-year-old girl. And disturbingly, he also kept notes on this 12-year-old girl of when she was alone and when would be a perfect time to kidnap her. Police also learned that Vincent's twin Marcus, who lived in South Australia, had been sent Stephanie's jewellery, specifically her engagement ring and a ring her mother had gifted her, and her driver's license. Now, when questioned, Marcus admitted to selling both of these rings for around $700. In a recorded phone call between Vincent and Marcus, Vincent can be heard asking his brother what he had done with the rings, which he referred to as the stuff. And Marcus replies, "Exactly what you told me to do." To which Vincent replies, "That's good." Marcus was charged with accessory to murder and sentenced to 15 months in jail. He has since been released, and upon his release, he publicly stated he wanted nothing to do with his brother and relocated to a town in country New South Wales. Meanwhile, in the church that she was due to marry her fiancé, Aaron, Stephanie's funeral was held, and more than 1,500 mourners attended the funeral, all donning her favourite colour, yellow. Her family described her as the girl they nicknamed Button Nose and spoke of how their beautiful girl was thoughtful and positive and caring. On the 13th of October 2016, Vincent stood in the Supreme Court of New South Wales charged with murder and aggravated sexual assault. Stephanie's mother gave a heart-wrenching statement in which she said to her daughter's killer, "It sickens me to think that in her last moments on earth, Stephanie would have been at a loss to comprehend how this person, to whom she had only ever been polite and pleasant, could betray her so badly. Did she see the knife? Did she know her fate? Did she see his fist before he pounded her precious life into oblivion? And even as her life drained away, his assault continued." Vincent was sentenced to 15 years for the aggravated sexual assault and life for murder, with the Supreme Court Justice stating, "The attack itself involved extreme brutality by a man of substantial size upon a defenceless young woman of modest size who had no means of escape. This is a case of murder that clearly falls within the worst category." Vincent avoided eye contact throughout the 2 hours sentencing and swallowed hard when he was sentenced to life and led away. Outside court, Stephanie's mum, Marilyn Scott, welcomed the decision and said it was time to let the music and fun back in, saying Steph had made a tangible difference to the lives of so many people, and Stephanie would want us to resume our lives. Sadly and heartbreakingly, only 2 weeks after Vincent was sentenced to life in prison, Stephanie's dad, Bob Scott, was killed when a tree fell on him at the family farm in Canawindra, and he was only 59 years old. In 2021, the Scott family received an out-of-court settlement after suing the State of New South Wales and the New South Wales Department of Education, which was Stephanie's employer at the time. And the family's lawyers said at the time the department needed more stringent screening of staff they intended to hire. As of today, Stephanie's family do not talk to the media, and in 2020, Stephanie's fiancé Aaron announced he had found love and was planning to marry. Vincent Stanford is in jail, and that is where he will spend the rest of his life. And there we have it, guys. The horrible tale of a teacher who, by all accounts, was a beautiful, caring, bright, bubbly person and was just in the wrong place at the wrong time when an absolute monster had opportunity to strike. Absolutely heartbreaking story. And that's it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scene with the Coffee Beans done and dusted. Thank you for lending me your ears. I appreciate every single one of you. And if you want to subscribe, if you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Please do. You can find all the information you need up on my website, up on Buzzsprout website. And I do apologise if my voice is a little off. I'm getting over a little cold cough thing. It is winter here in Australia, so all the fun bugs and coughs and colds are about. Yay. Anyway, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for lending me your ears. You've been listening to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. And until next time, guys, stay safe, stay cool, and stay caffeinated. I will catch you all later.